being a prophet would stink. I mean, there's no way you can win. Being a prophet is the ultimate catch-22. Hello, my name is Philip Fanstone. This is the philipfiles. And I've been pondering the prophetic problem. Prophets can't win. Even when they're right, they lose. Because usually they predict doom and gloom. And when they're right, yay! And if they're wrong, everybody's like, well, anyway. The prophetic problem. Now, I've always admired prophets. Those scruffy, nerf-hurting, antisocial outcast, wandering, the Judean wilderness, eating locusts and honey, which sounds good. Maybe I'm just hungry. But anyway, these guys, I mean, with names like Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Elijah, Nathan. I mean, these guys, nowadays, of course, we look back and we have books named after them. We name our children after them, and they're just the men of renown and, stubborn tenacity. But at the time, I mean, I guess the one requirement of being a prophet would be you must be universally rejected by the people you're trying to help, and that sounds bad. It doesn't sound like a good vocation. In fact, hearing about the prophets, and there's one story, numerous, but there's actually both Ezekiel and John, the Apostle John in the New Testament, are told to eat a scroll, and when they do, it's honey. It's sweet. And that's the thing, when you hear from God, when God communicates truth to you, when you, again, the Word, or through time with God, prayer, or counseling with others, or insight, revelation, it's sweet. But then, as it talks about in John, as it goes to his belly, it's sour and bitter. And I've often thought about that, which is one of the reasons I did not take the prophetic Bachelor of Arts in college. The idea of being a prophet was never very attractive. And so evangelist, that's something I could get psyched up about. That's something and I did, and I have. But it's interesting, evangelists and prophets, and I will come back to that one thing, it's pretty much the same occupation. I mean, the evangelist and a prophet, the same occupation. The only difference is one audience listens. I mean, they're both calling their audience to repent. They're both calling but one audience listens. So Billy Graham was an evangelist, but he could have been a prophet. Thankfully, he was an evangelist. We listened. My mom listened. Was saved at one of his crusades. So this going back to scroll. So it becomes bitter, because what happens is the truths, when they first get them, they're sweet. You want to share them with others. But then what happens when people don't accept it? People reject it. People reject you. And it actually happened to Jesus as well. He was rejected by his own hometown where he grew up. And he said a prophet is not accepted in his own town. He's accepted everywhere else, just not his own town. And so the catch-22. If you predict doom and gloom, and nobody listens, you're right. Thousands of years later, people will name their kids after you, and you'll have books and all this. But if people do listen to you, then like Jonah, Jonah's like, yes, Nineveh's going to be destroyed. And then they listened, and they repented. So the prophets, when they're listened to, then they're false prophets in a way, because their prophecy doesn't happen. I actually presented this argument a couple of years ago about Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was known as a prophet, because in the 1930s, he warned Europe, he warned Chamberlain and those in the British government and France, the Allies, that not to trust Hitler, they need to do something about Hitler. People didn't listen, they tried appeasement and all this, and we found out that didn't work. And so when everything hit the fan, well, they go to Churchill, bring Churchill back, and he becomes prime minister and leads England and Britain, and eventually helps bring in America, and we win the war. And of course, and largely thanks to him. But I had the question a couple of years ago, what if they had listened? What if they had been like, Churchill, you're right, in 1937, what if they listened to Churchill and said, yeah, we need to go take on Germany right now? And they had. Now, looking back, we would say, well, 15 million people died in World War II. And if they had started in 1937, when the military in Nazi Germany was not as powerful and Hitler had not gotten all these successes, if they had confronted Hitler in 1937, it could have been a very short war. There could have been a coup against Hitler. It may have been a war. Maybe thousands, maybe hundreds, maybe a million people would have died, but no way over a million people would have died. And in World War II, 50 million people did die. So looking back, you'd say if people had listened, 49 million people would have been saved. 49 million lives would not have been lost. But that's looking back from our timeline. In his timeline, they would know that 50 million lives, or 49 million lives were saved. They would have known, hey, you started a war, a million people died, or 100,000 people, or whatever the number would have been. And he would have been a warmonger and been universally rejected. So the fact they didn't listen to him actually helped his reputation. I don't think he wanted that. Obviously, he didn't. But these prophets, their reputations have been enhanced because people didn't listen to them. People didn't repent. That's the catch-22. I mean, if the people you care about most ignore you and appreciate you, well, you go down in history and famous. But the people, your friends and family, the people you're with, that's bitter. And so that's kind of this role of the prophet, this catch-22. And I've not wanted any of that. That does not sound like fun. And so lately, this summer, I was there was a prophecy that I was a man of discovery, which was so awesome. It's very sweet. And I've been having lots of crazy ideas and lots of unconventional ideas. And of course my, every topic eventually goes back to myself. That's just par for course for navel gazers. But you kind of have to be a little egotist to, put yourself on YouTube. You have to, put yourself out there, I guess, sitting on your side for 390 days, eating food made from or cooked with dung. Of course, God told Ezekiel to do that. I can't really blame him for that. But, there's a certain... Anyway, so back to myself. I have all these things. I want to share them with people. I want to share them with my family. I've written things, done videos, do these blogs. I've had a blog for a few years. And it's nice. It's sweet. But then it becomes bitter when no one really cares. Now, fortunately, nobody's tried to stone me or sawn me in half or throw me to lions. So I need to count my blessings on that. But being ignored is also kind of like, you have all this and it's just no one cares. And of course, that's it's not fun, but it's I guess that's not that much of a burden compared to the alternatives. There's another catch-22. If you can avoid the persecution by being ignored. So what do you want there? You want the notoriety and the persecution, or do you want to, be obedient and be ignored? And I guess I don't know what the answer is there either. But the prophetic catch-22. I have a feeling though, and this is the thing. It says in the Bible, God says, I do nothing without revealing it to my prophets. So God is revealing things right now to his prophets. I guess the question for each one of us is, are we listening? Are we paying attention? Or do we dismiss them as those, conspiracy theorists or those cranky, do we dismiss them? As it was so easy to dismiss Ezekiel. He did some crazy stuff. Isaiah, Jeremiah, he preaches to people and they ignore him, and eventually he goes to captivity with them because he loves them so much, and yet, all of his words were unheeded, it seemed. Well, I guess that the trait about the prophets that really stuck with me is they're stubborn and they were obedient. And ultimately, the results, as I've come to understand, the results are not up to us. Hebrews 11 does a good job of kind of explaining that. The results are in God's hands. Our job is to be obedient. And some will see results, some will plant, some will water, and some will harvest. But it's God that, so I guess the prophets are the ones planting the seeds of truth, the revelation, and then others, the evangelists, come along and harvest later on. But they're all in it together. So I guess don't really know how to end that, just something to think about. Pondering on the prophetic problem. So, thank you for joining me. See you in the book of Acts. And howdy, and have a happy haggis. Check out some of my other videos. Like if you subscribe. Don't click on the subscribe. Yeah, there. Don't click on the subscribe button. Don't do it. See, I'm trying to use reverse psychology. I'm not very good at that. Anyway, have a great day. Howdy and happy haggis. That's my new ending for now.